Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Blurred Lines, our last episode. My name is Sophia, and I will be your host today, as always. So today we have 6 guests. So now we're going to have them each introduce themselves by their name, their year, and their major. So we'll start by you, Quinn.
Hi, I'm Quinn, Quinlan. I am a graduating senior, and I double major in history and classics.
Hi everyone, my name is Marta. I'm majoring in international affairs, minoring in economics, and this is my second year at John Cabot.
Hi everyone, my name is Alessandro. I'm a graduate and I'm studying economics and finance with a minor in marketing.
Hello everyone, I'm Fabio. I'm a graduating senior as well, and I'm majoring in economics.
Hi, my name is Matteo. This is my first year at JCU and I'm majoring in business administration.
Good afternoon, my name is Leonardo Rivalenti. I am a senior studying international affairs with a minor in history.
Great. So today's topic is on something that is very controversial here at JCU, as many of our students know. Giuseppe Conte, the Prime Minister of Italy, is confirmed as this year's commencement guest speaker and will also receive an honorary degree. So many students have expressed their opposition as well as their support in having him as our speaker. So without further ado, we're going to have each student express their personal opinion on the matter. So we'll start with Fabio.
Yep. So hello everyone. Before I start, I want to state that I haven't voted for either party in power right now in Italy, and I don't support the current government. But nonetheless, I think we should have Giuseppe Conte as the commencement speaker for 3 good reasons, I think. The first is that he's a sitting prime minister, and I think JC would benefit greatly in having him as the commencement speaker in terms of reputation and prestige. The second is that he's a former trustee, so he has a very important link to our university, and that's why he should be present on a very special day for all our graduates. And the third one, which is the reason I think is most compelling, is that we live in a time where we have these 2, I think, visions of the world competing against each other. One of being closed against diversity, being less tolerant, saying we should close our borders and stuff. And then our opposite vision, which says we should actually, open up, embrace diversity, because diversity is a strength, not a weakness. And I think this is especially true in Italy right now, and the current government in Italy is divided over these issues. And since I think Giuseppe Conte actually belongs to the good side of this debate within the context of the Italian government, I think that by having him as a commencement speaker, JCU would have the opportunity to reinstate its missions, its values, and show the world where it stands on this matter.
Thank you. So now we're going to go with your opinion.
My opinion is that John Cabot is a multicultural environment that attracts students from all over the world. So if we are looking at a commencement speaker which should represent this kind of criteria, maybe we should consider having a speaker that actually resembles this kind of aspects for a commencement speaker. Because we want someone that is able to represent us, and it's not a representative of a country. We need a representative of students, of diversity, of different cultures. We're using a stone, a pillar. We're using the prime minister of a country to represent us. How can that be beneficial for a university like John Cabot that has so many multicultural students?
Thank you. So Matteo, do you have your opinion?
Yes, I have. I believe that it's not a matter of why Conte should come, because commencement speakers have been chosen. He has been voted by the student body by last year, as Giovanni showed on the Facebook group. He's a respected lawyer, professor. He's the Prime Minister of Italy. He's a well-respected person, even though I don't personally support him, but I believe in having him as a commencement speaker this year.
Thank you. Marta?
Yeah. I do believe that he's absolutely a well-respected person, but by the way, he still represents, he's the head of the Italian state. So we cannot think about Conte without picturing the context in which he's present. So he is the Prime Minister of Italy, and as such, since the 2nd of June of 2018, last year, he still he's representing a government which is a coalition of Lega Nord and Movimento 5 Stelle. So even if he doesn't represent exactly their positions, he's still the mediator, making possible this coalition to be alive. So by granting him a laurea ad honorem, the honorary degree, I believe that John Cabot is kind of convalidating and granting him this honor of supporting these values that the government is implementing, which are absolutely fueling prejudicial attitudes against ethnic and gender minorities, whereas John Cabot University is a vibrant and multicultural community with also ethnic and gender minorities.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you. I am personally in favor of having Conte, Prime Minister Conte speaking in our university in first place for the reason already mentioned by my colleagues, that he, as the head of the government of our country, is a rather authoritative figure. He was a member of the board of trustees, and having and the possibility of our university having the head of government of a country speaking in at some of our ceremonies is something that, in my view, brings prestige and in a way visibility to our institution in first place. Then I want to add that right now we live in a moment of international turmoil, where Italy, not only because of its internal politics but also because of its geopolitical configuration, is a very significant actor, and the current Italian government is facing many challenges, and I think that beyond the political colors that a certain government might have here in Italy, it is certainly something interesting to have the standpoint of a country that is the center, the core of the whole Mediterranean region, expressing his views and giving a speech about the horizons of this country and this region at some public event.
And lastly?
So before beginning, I do want to acknowledge that I've been one of the more vocal people on this, and I want to acknowledge the reason why is because I'm part of the graduating class, and I don't appreciate my graduation being turned into a political event, which isn't being done by people wishing to protest it. It's being done by inviting a standing political figure to the graduation. It invites a politicization of the event. So that's personally why I'm so invested in it. But it does go a little bit deeper than that. So I've been going to JCU for 4 years. When I first showed up, JCU was known, if you asked local Italian high school students who goes to JCU other than Americans coming to Rome, they generally answered two things. They answered gay Italians go to JCU and Jews go to JCU. In the last year, and actually the last 2 years, there have been a couple of other attributes that have jumped in. I didn't really notice it at first because my Italian wasn't as good, but American Italians are also mentioned now, whereas I didn't notice that as a mentioning my freshman year. But also, people say fascists as an identity to the people, the kind of people who attend JCU. And as Marta really clearly said, the issue with awarding an honorary degree to a figure like Conte, despite what he's done for JCU, which I am very much appreciative of, which I'm sure we'll get in later in this talk into specifically what he's done for JCU, which is phenomenal. But what an honorary degree for him would be honoring his accomplishments in life, the most significant of which is allowing this government to function. And an honoring of his position in that functioning is an honoring and acknowledgement of the current government that I don't appreciate JCU doing, particularly because it stands in opposition to the values that JCU has promised its students.
Thank you. So now I'm going to open up the conversation for anyone to, I don't know, if you want to pick out certain things that you've heard your other students mention, and if you want to comment or respond or reflect on anything.
Yeah, I have a question for Quinn actually. So if I understood correctly your point, you're not having a problem with Giuseppe Conte as the individual and what he personally stands for, but in his role as the Prime Minister of this government, which has policies you don't like, which stands for positions that are against the university's values.
So it's a little bit more complicated than that, because he is a slightly controversial figure, particularly because of the different bills he signed off on, and because of his personal history, like what's been brought up online, his lying on his CV, although not necessarily lying, he has been a misleading person. So I do take a little bit of issue with the fact that he is a misleading person, and that he's been shown to mislead people. And I think that really goes in line with him being a political figure. His personal, the way he worded things on his CV was intentionally misleading. And I think he does the same thing with politics in general, is he is intentionally deceptive in politics. And he signed off with bills that I personally cannot agree on, but I don't think my political stance should matter on the issue. I think what should matter is that he's signed off on bills that have acted against the interest of the university's mission statement. That being to encourage diversity, and if you look into the mission statement, one of them is to encourage leaders to stand up for diversity and inclusion of minority groups, which tragically can't happen when you have someone signing off on bills that are of xenophobic origin.
But do you have any specific example in mind? Because from what I think, what you're having problems with is actually not the initiatives of the government as a whole, but of single ministers. And the Constitution of Italy in Article 95 says that the ministers have autonomy in their own functions and are responsible personally for their own actions. The government as a whole, and so Conte as Prime Minister, is only responsible for acts that the whole government undertakes, like signing treaties or,
Yes.
with the whole government behind
So
them.
I do understand and acknowledge that, and to actually jump onto one of Matteo's points about the Giovanni making a post on Facebook that acknowledged Conte as a potential speaker. So I'm part of student government. I have been since my second semester here at JCU, off and on in student government. And there wasn't a vote, just to clarify. There wasn't a vote on who the commencement speaker is, because that's not how commencement speakers are acknowledged. It's on the onus of the university to invite a commencement speaker. But when Giovanni put out a post saying, or commented on someone's post of Conte is a trustee, could we get him for the graduation? I was highly in favor of it. And that was because it was early September. September 27th, Conte signed a bill that changed the standing of refugee entrance into Italy. And I remember that very clearly, and I remember the exact day because it was my birthday. But
Is it Decreto Sicurezza?
Yeah,
But
security
doesn't
decree.
actually Mattarella, the President of the Republic, sign it?
He signed
Not
it, but I
Conte.
remember
He signed
perfectly
it.
that he specifically referred to Matteo Salvini, the minister, the Italian Minister of the Interior,
Yeah.
by saying him, yes, but we need to be careful with it. So he signed it, but he acknowledged himself, like Mattarella, he realized how dangerous he could potentially become.
so that's part of the complication. Is I genuinely don't mind Conte as a person, but he acknowledged, signed, and supported that bill. And that's part of the problem I have, is particularly that bill in addition to the deal with China. I think there's major complications because it flies in the face of his economic promises to Italy and its economic independence. So.
Okay, well, I would just like to respond by pointing out that the security law, Decreto Sicurezza, is a law that targets mainly those who enter in this country illegally. And this is not a law that goes against foreigners living here in Italy. And even more, the reddito di cittadinanza, which is a measure that is questionable under any point of view, but still, it is universal, and it is even considered to to foreigners living here in Italy for a certain amount of time. So I think that there is an exaggeration when we go on by accusing the Italian government of being so blatantly xenophobic, especially when we have even the country like the United States that have been applying much stricter laws, and not only under Trump but under the Obama administration, and considering also the challenges that Italy faces. And once again, about the mission of the university, I can understand this concern, but I have to observe also that, say this, I don't think it goes against our mission simply because of this security law, and even because this university is a place of open debate with different points of view. It's not a political movement, so we can have people that stands for it, people that stands against, and just as in the past there might have been, I'm sure there were speakers more connected with different parts of the political spectrum. Now we are having Conte, which has this ambiguous standing, which can again be object of discussion for the ambiguity, but not for not being aligned with what might have been in the past.
So just a very brief comment on that. I would like to harp on the fact that by international law that Italy has agreed on, asylum seekers' entrance to Italy is not illegal. If you are a refugee seeking asylum in the nation, that is pursuing the legal practice and not entering illegally.
Yes, this is true, but for example, in the height of the refugee crisis, there was a study made by the Ministry of Internal Affairs, and by that time we had a leftist government, and what the result was that the refugees were around 5% of the total people entering the country, and still now nobody has removed the practice of identifying refugees from other economic migrants, and we still shelter political refugees. Just those that are not protected are economic illegal migrants, just specifying.
Absolutely, and I can agree with that, but I think we also need to be honest with where the origin of these political decisions come from. Because what these political decisions and the debate that we're having is a very civil debate about economic practice, about the legal standing of these individuals, and it would be dishonest to say that everyone entering is a refugee, because that's not the case. There are many people who are entering under the guise of the refugee status that are not what we would define as asylum-seeking refugees. Very honest, that is the case. But what support for stricter and more targeted laws to remove these refugees is coming from a xenophobic tendency of a lot of individuals. And I think it would be disingenuous to not acknowledge the fact that the origin of this political argument is very often in the xenophobia of people voting for politicians in this.
May I build something on what Quinn has just said? That data show that hate crimes in Italy have been deeply increasing since 2017, and the main motivation was for racial biases. So it's not that we are making up these arguments from nothing, from the air. Data really show how the Italian society is going through a progressive dehumanization, is going through a progressive increase towards prejudicial attitudes and violence against gender minorities, for issues regarding sexism, for issues regarding the LGBTQ community, as the Congress of Verona showed, and also regarding ethnic minorities. So this is something that we should acknowledge.
And adding up to that, I would like to let you acknowledge the fact that we have been saying that Conte is the mediator in between these two political parties, and the way in which these two political parties have acted during the year with confront to minorities and the cultural groups has proven our point.
How?
Well, John Cabot is as we have discussed and I've been hearing even from you guys, John Cabot is a multicultural environment that comprehends different groups of people, and as Quinn was pointing out, we have also a large group of minorities, which are at the same time the same group of minorities which are discriminated in the Italian society. So I do not feel this bond in between the intermediary, which we do not, as we said, we're not attacking the intermediary itself. We are looking at the process of the intermediary in the moment in which he took place of his position.
Can I just say one more thing as well? I just want to make sure, because I'm not sure if it's been said already, the point of any protests that may happen at graduation is not an opportunity to attack Conte or either political party. The major reason for any protest at graduation is for the fact that he will be speaking at our graduation. It isn't an opportunity because he will be present that we are then able to attack him and the government. It is a protest targeted towards JCU to avoid such controversial invitations for commencement speeches in the future. Just because you said in regards to attack these parties, I want to make it sure that what we're trying to do is not attack these parties in any protest, although we may do that on a personal level within these sort of debates. The point of any organized protest or of the letter that called for JCU to decline the invitation, the purpose of that was very much the case of JCU being the target of this protest.
I just want to elaborate on what the whole picture you drew with your three interventions. I think it's no big mystery that there has been actually an increase in intolerance and hate crimes, and there's been a general climate of hostility towards diversity. I would say myself in my main opening statement, but what I think we should focus on is that who is channeling these feelings and who is doing policies that play on this climate of hostility. And I think that Lega, of course, is entirely behind these, and I will say a good part of the Five Star movement is also condescending for political convenience, and that is abhorrent. I abhor it myself. But since we're talking about Conte, as the politician Conte, I think you should also consider what he's done to dissociate from these proposals and actually to filter to the best of his abilities, because of course he's not a dictator. We live in a democracy. He has no power to just say, no, I don't like this law, I'll write it off. I can give you some examples. He spoke against the World Congress of Families in Verona when the Diciotti ship, not the second time, which is the one we all know because it's still a long time in the war, but the first time when it first came into the harbors of Sicily, Conte was the one who, with a phone call to President Mattarella, was able to make the migrants disembark from the ship. And now I don't really remember all of the single episodes, but what I want to highlight is that he is actually, as a politician, not only as an individual, he has done much to, prevent these policies and these hateful things to be channeled to their full force into the government. So, again, if we invite Conte, I think that we are siding with his initiatives, not with the government he represents.
I agree with an invitation, but I think the particular case of why people are upset about this is because his accomplishment is allowing this government to function. That is the accomplishment of his career, of his political career, which is what JCU is awarding him an honorary degree for public service.
So he's saying he could take advantage of this degree for further elections, but
No,
he said
not at all. So JCU would be rewarding his political career, which is allowing this to function. That's JCU acknowledging that this government's presence is worth a degree. An honorary degree. An honorary degree which is the same as a degree. An honorary degree which is it a master's standing degree? Because I believe it is a master's standing ad honorem. That is higher than the degree of all of us in the room are going to get from JCU. All of us, I assume, have worked very hard to remain here at JCU. And I don't appreciate that this government is getting recognition for what I see working against JCU. And awarding him an honorary degree for his public service, that being allowing this government to function, is problematic. I would love for Conte to come deliver a speech at JCU. I would absolutely love that. I am all for freedom of speech, but in addition to, I would like to hear what he says. But the commencement speaker speaks for the class, and I don't appreciate that. In addition to, the honorary degree is JCU acknowledging this government. Sorry for interrupting you.
No, I just wanted to add up on what Fabio was saying about the fact that he is actually towards helping the migrants, in the sense that if it, as Quinn was saying, in September the bill was signed, it means that it had been also almost a year that he was in charge, which means that his political view and the way in which he should have transferred it to the political parties did not have the desired effect that one would like to have when considering countries with large groups of minorities and disparity.
So you think he should have done more or he should have dissociated completely from signing the law?
If we think about the fact that he is the one who is supposed to be the mediator, and he's the one who should assure capital markets that Italy is a financially stable country in order to attract, as we know, investments, then he should have moved in a way in order for the bill that passed in September to not be, as I have understood, so perceived in such a way in which it is perceived.
I beg your pardon, but in first place, I don't see how the security laws have impacted on our financial standing.
No, I was not saying that. I did not say that. I did not.
Okay, so I misunderstood because you mentioned at first
probably.
the financial, but still attaching to it. Although I agree with you that there has been some increase in violence from the side of like hate crimes, as you tend to call them. We have to point out that general statistics of crimes have been increasing, and this is mainly because of an increasing of poverty in the country due to an a difficult economic situation that hasn't been solved in several years, not only because of the League and of these parties. Of course, a movement like some extremist movements, they encourage this kind of violence. We have had some examples, but still, this is, I think it's very, let's say, bold to go on and accuse this rise of violence, accuse parties in government of this rise of violence. And also, it doesn't seem to me that these policies have by any means damaged our university. It seems to me that there was no impact. No student was extradited because of them. There was no restriction imposed upon us. So
That's not entirely true. There have been students that have been denied entry to Italy because of the country of origin that they come from. They had their visas denied because of the sort of wave towards this. But I do want to harp on just one thing you said, what people call hate crimes. What would you call them instead of hate crimes?
we should look at the kind of crimes that were then moved by what if there are already aggravants in Italy for example, racial or religious reasons if they are attached to already existing crimes. So this is the way.
So we shouldn't be categorizing them based on the nature of their origin, by the nature of their method, or should we only look at them as murders, as theft, as public beatings? What should we be looking at them? Because it seems that there is a rise of crime with the common thread being xenophobia. The common thread being a fear for the ethnic, religious, cultural origin of the victims of these crimes.
You might have a crime, you categorize it for what it is in first place, so public beating or murder or whatever, with the aggravant, if aggravating factor of a certain either racial or religious thing. Now the concept of xenophobia, fear, in first place that the idea of xenophobia recalls like Islamophobia or similar, they really recall the idea of a disease more than a political attitude, because phobias, they tend to enter in a certain category in psychology, which is already something that questionable per se. And the whole the idea of my point now was that even this concept of xenophobia, when we look at it etymologically, doesn't make much sense because it implies fear, but it is not necessarily fear that one that might be against these groups or even violent against them might have. So again.
So to continue with that, so you're proposing that there's an alternate reason for why people are doing this other than xenophobia, and you proposed a financial reason. Okay, if it is a financial reason, I think we should investigate this further, but more so, if it's a financial reason, it has increased under this government. Therefore, this government is then to blame for the financial decline of the nation, which has led to this increase of crime. Mm-hmm. If that is what you're saying, then it's the decrease of the financial condition of the people who are the aggressors of these crimes.
Well, this government has been in office for 1 year, while we had for the past since 2011, when Berlusconi was removed of office, we had several government instability, and many of them failed to recover the economy or adopted financial measures that harshened the life of most of.
So if it is a continuation of the prior government's economic models, then why is it that once this government was put in power, and I say put in power, not elected, because that's not entirely the case with the current condition of the government as a coalition government, why has it so dramatically shifted toward an increase of hate crime? Because it's not a continuation of a rise of hate crime. It is a dramatic rise of hate crime.
Well, I think that with the rise of poverty and the increasing of the migration towards our country, which has been happening over the last years, we had the mechanism was already in a way starting heading in this direction. Right now, there has been a government that has tried to change policies, especially about the economy, but in my opinion, in a very poor and ill done manner, which I myself, I am not a supporter of this government, but nonetheless, I think that you cannot put the blame for problems that have been accumulating for years only on the current moment.
Then what would you propose is the divisive factor that caused such a radical change? Is it merely a coincidence that a government that is formed of two parties that have rather xenophobic membership
and extreme nationalist attitudes?
Precisely. Is it just a coincidence that once these governments were put in power, people felt they had the political capacity to commit these crimes? Or whatever reason for why they committed these crimes, is it merely a coincidence that these more radical ideological movements have entered politics that you see a rise of hate crime? Or is it just a coincidence that after a long time of migration issues and poverty issues, it suddenly increased last year?
The way these parties communicate their message about immigration and different minorities should be better mediated by someone who should be the prime minister. This is the person who is in charge of mediating these parties and the way in which they confer the information.
Can you say that you're both right? Like, as he has said, the dramatic economic situation in Italy and in Europe in general is not something new. It's not something that this government has caused. So the groundwork is there, and I agree personally by saying that the government is taking advantage of this already dramatic scenario it's exploiting it for electoral purposes. I think you're both right.
But that is what I'm saying, though, is that the government has explicitly, and not just to gain the votes, but while in office, has continued to promote xenophobic tendencies and pro-nationalist tendencies at the detriment of people's lives, of people's well-being.
Can you cite some example of this promotion of xenophobia and extreme nationalism, as you said, and give us some more concrete ground on which we might work.
Okay, besides the security decree that has been already mentioned, the Minister of the Interior, Matteo Salvini, it was June, it was last summer, he was about to propose censimento. How do you say it?
What is that?
Censimento.
Census.
Census.
Ethnic
okay.
census.
Ethnic census for Roma people.
Mhm.
So he was addressing Roma people as if they were the main problem of the extreme situation in which Rome, our city, is living. So he was addressing them as if they were the main problem of the situation in the city.
Okay, I can see to some extent your point about this, but I have to observe that this is something that, for example, in my region, Emilia-Romagna, was made by the regional government, which is a left-wing government, years ago. So this is really not something concerning some sort of nasty propaganda, but it is something, again, that you do on a population that even because they tend to move very often, you cannot have full control over them.
I just want to say, I don't think that this issue is right-leaning or left-leaning. I think the issue is nationalistic-leaning. It's not strictly to either political wing of political discourse. It's strictly to a exaggeration of hyper-nationalism. It's promoting people to be more Italian at the detriment of those that are not.
And I would like to ask you, what do you mean by control?
Knowing who these people are, where they are, what they are doing.
We're mixing up some facts. What Emilia-Romagna, which Enrico Rossi, you're talking about the regional administration in Tuscany, in Emilia.
In Emilia,
I don't know if that is Tuscany, so I
yes.
mix people up. Anyway, what they did is another thing is saying who is in Roma camps, because those are entire areas of cities that are out of control of the state and you don't know who is there. That is okay, but what actually Salvini proposed or was appealing to was saying let's make an ethnic census of everybody wherever he lives in Italy who is of Roma ethnicity. That's a different thing. It's not seeing who resides within a certain area of the country. It's saying who belongs to a certain ethnicity or race in all of the country, and that's
Resembles Jews
Not-
during the Second
not
World War,
nice.
maybe.
That I have to say.
Okay, now we are exaggerating.
Yeah.
Come on.
I
No, we're not.
think
We're
that the
not.
purpose,
Yes, no, we're
that
not.
the purpose
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you said.
So, I just little quick thing. Is there any way, like small things we can do to make sure that the graduation ceremony is a respectful and hopefully joyous event of the year? I don't know if Matteo, you haven't spoke as much.
I haven't spoken because I came here thinking we're going to have a debate on Conte coming to the graduation. Instead, we started having a debate on Italian politics and on immigration. So I feel that's not why the reason I was here. So I prefer not to talk.
Okay.
That's not why I'm here.
Well, if if anyone has any ideas of just the graduation ceremony in general, how to make sure it's.
I don't know how much leverage we have on this, but we could ask Conte to clarify his issues himself, why he should make the case for why he's not against this university's values, and he can do that since he was a trustee.
Well, I don't feel he should make a point for why he's not against this university's values.
No,
He's
I
the Prime
mean, no,
Minister.
sorry, not why he's against, but why he as the commencement speaker is promoting Jesus' values.
Why? Why should he? I mean, he's a prime minister.
No, but aside
he
from
can
being
just
prime
tell you
minister,
okay, and then I'm
You
not gonna
cannot
come.
ask to a prime minister
exactly.
to write some things in his speech.
No, what I'm saying is exactly not handing him the script and say you have to say this, but since this is commencement and this is a certain kind of event sponsored by the university, we would like you to address, the university's values. But aside from him being prime minister, it's something we could ask any speaker to do regardless of the controversy.
The commencement speaker is speaking for the graduation class in addition to that. And that is why I think it would not be unjust to propose to him that he speak about JCU's values in particular. And that would simply be worded as a request by the Office of the President for him to address things that are JCU's mission statement and JCU's values and how potentially he has worked or will continue to work on this. And I don't want to return to the political issue, but as I was saying with the CV example, the only grievance I have with him as a person is that he doesn't clearly define his positions. since his positions have changed from when he was a trustee even, where he was far more left-leaning, he's become a more populist figure, and he hasn't clearly defined any of his political issues. So if he wants to use this as an opportunity to define his political issues, okay. Otherwise, I don't particularly care what he says in his speech, because generally speaking, I will think that he will not be speaking for me. And I think that's part of the problem of the commencement.
Yes. As a matter of rules of ceremonial, you don't usually ask to a speaker to address a certain topic if you have invited him. Although it is to be expected that since he was a trustee and someone who worked with JCU for a very long time, he should know what he's going to say, and he should know the kind of audience that he did. Something like this can be made, in my opinion, as an informal and very delicate request, of course, but still is a, let's say, complicated solution.
For something to maybe bring up more lines of dialogue, I think that one thing that the university could definitely do a better job about for the commencement and how to operate under this commencement is listen to the requests of the professors. So the professors, in addition to this anonymous students who sent in a letter, the professors requested from the university through a letter that explicitly stated a large amount of the professors' concern with this commencement speaker, but they also requested if they would be allowed to not walk during the graduation. That walking being a part of the ceremony, they were denied because JCU wishes to continue with the proper procedure of past ceremony. But I think that one thing that could help promote a more cohesive, a more unified JCU graduation would be to listen to the professors who wish to use this as a time to silently protest. That being by not walking during the graduation.
So what I heard today that we were debating was a lot of policies which are debatable whether you're on either side of the political spectrum, but I didn't really hear a reason or hear it connected to why Conte should not speak at our university. We briefly talked about it at the beginning, then you mentioned the laurea ad honorem, which even that point can be debated for public service because he decreased the deaths of immigrants in the sea. He passed some bills which actually helped women, like Codice Rosso, which gives priority to cases of violence against women in the police. So yeah, I still didn't hear a reason why he shouldn't come to the graduation commencement speech.
Okay. So now we're just gonna wrap up with a little final words from our guests. So Quinn, go ahead.
So in a little bit to response to what you just said, I think that most of the reason we haven't talked about specifically why Conte shouldn't be at the graduation is because of a lot of it comes down to our personal beliefs and our personal views of the issue. A lot of us are perceiving the issue as different to what it is. Personally, what I said is my problem being the ad honorem, the honorary degree. But my problem isn't because JCU is awarding this honorary degree and I don't like it because I've worked hard for my degree. I want my degree to be special. The reason that I'm upset is because this seems to come in line with more and more of a reputation of JCU to be a place where fascists go to. And any acknowledgement of the current administration of Italy, I think, plays into the hand of that. I fear that JCU in the future will be a more hospitable place to more nationalistic, more radical, extremist, right-wing political perceptions. And I don't want that to continue. I would rather JCU, what will be my alma mater, to be remembered as a place that is accepting of different students. So the specific reason why I'm protesting this is because of that, because I don't want JCU to continue to go down this slippery slope that would be devaluing its mission statement. In addition to that, JCU isn't listening to its professors and to some of its students, at the very least. Because the issue, particularly because I've been having this argument so much online, the issue isn't the majority of the students wanting Conte and a few students wanting to protest. The issue really comes down to a few students not wanting a protest and a few students wanting a protest, with the large majority either not caring who gives the commencement speech or wanting Conte to be there for the commencement speech, but not minding a protest. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is if you are accepting, because all of you have your times for your final words, if you are accepting of a protest to happen at your graduation, as long as it is respectful, would you be inclined to such? Thank you.
All right.
Very well, I will give my conclusive marks. First of all, this is a discussion that has quickly, let's say, degenerated in some way, although this is not exactly the right word, into a political debate about Italian politics. This was probably unavoidable because the issue is intimately connected with them. Say this, I do not see how the acknowledgement of the current Prime Minister of Italy will in any way promote fascism or anything like that. Italy is not a fascist country, we don't have a fascist government, and we are not promoting anything like that in the university. Say this, I do think that the presence of the Prime Minister will, as I said in my opening marks, instead helping contribute in the image of to the image of the university, and in a positive way. I wanted to make it clear. And say this, I think that nonetheless, perhaps the discussion now might be whether our institution might have to be more careful in the future in the moment of making such invitations, so to avoid similar, highly divisive debates. Thank you.
Well, my last words, I will basically keep on talking about what I said as my opening statement. And I don't think that JCU should put at stake its values just for the sake of prestige, because of course having a prime minister as a commencement speaker is definitely a great prestige, but we should think, in my opinion, at what's at stake. If at stake there are specific values fueling the spirit of our university, then I don't think that inviting Conte and granting him a laurea ad honorem is a fair thing, since, as I said before, we shall not forget that he is the Prime Minister of Italy and he is the one representing and making possible this government, which is a xenophobic government, to be there. Thank you.
That's my turn. So with my final words, actually I want to address your concerns. I get where your worry comes from, and personally I feel it's not for the prestige. I just mentioned it as an additional reason, but I said in the beginning that I really care about the values aspect of this issue. First, to Quinn, I would like to say that you shouldn't worry about like your alma mater being remembered for like right-wing and nationalist positions just by supporting Conte, because if you want my take on the political situation, Conte won't be prime minister for long, so this degree won't really benefit this government. This is just my 2 cents. Then I also want to address Marta's positions that she just expressed. You're saying he's the one making this government possible. Actually, I think that even if Conte wasn't there, then the 2 parties in power, specifically their leaders, would have found anyone else to make this government run. I think it's actually a good thing that they pick someone like Conte, who has personal values that are more in line with our university's values, and is actually trying to do, in my opinion, whatever is in his power to, keep the brakes on. So I would like to say, don't worry too much about it. By the way, I'm in favor of protest, but as long as it's recognized as a protest of a concerned students group, not like in the name of the whole university. That's it.
To conclude, based on my introduction, I would like to state the fact that this university again is a multicultural environment, and if we come to see these people discussing at this table, we have the people that are, let's say, against quoted Conte, in the sense that we're not against the person itself. I would like to clarify it, and on the other side we have a group of Italian people. So maybe what I'm more concerned of and would like to leave as a question is if we're looking at this as a matter of personal, of us as egoist people, and how this would affect the prestige, our prestige, and if we're not looking at from the point of view of which are the people that represent this university.
Right.
So first of all, I would like to say that obviously if you guys want to protest at your graduation, you have the right to protest. Nobody is saying that you can't protest, obviously. But going back to the destruction of the values by having Conte talk here, first of all, JCU is a multicultural environment, but before that, it's a business. Before that, it needs prestige. It's a business. You pay to come.
It's a non-profit. It's a non-profit.
It's a non-profit, but you pay a lot of money to come here. You pay a lot of money. It's not like free.
Or I get scholarship.
Or you get a scholarship.
Because
how many people do you think that everybody at JCU have a scholarship? Yes, but not everybody.
No, but of the degree-seeking students, it's actually the majority have scholarships.
Yes.
It's kind of surprising.
But still, it's a business. It's a non-profit. You can call it a non-profit, but its aim is to make money to go forward in the next period.
If it's a non-profit, how it's
to get the money to go over.
The goal is not to make profit, but
it's to make money. It's to get the money to pay for new things, to make it always better. So obviously, if you have a prime minister coming to your commencement speech, it's a PR event. It gives you a lot of publicity, a lot of more faces who see. So a lot of more money who that possibly can come in, and with the more money that comes in, you can improve the university for the students who come later. So that is also a point of view which you have to look at when you have such an important commencement speaker speaking.
Just because it sort of elevated the emotions, can we have just one quick response? Because I just want to respond to so I think what we're concerned about, and you addressed our concerns, but I still feel concerned about this, is personally I don't see it as prestige, I see it as fame. JCU is attracting attention because of this, but are they attracting prestige? Because prestige in the academic world comes out of your alumni, like the people who you produce and send out into the world with degrees from your university is your university's prestige. And the honorary degree is a part of that. So it's definitely worth attracting the attention, but how much is at stake by attracting this attention? Because of course the university wants to improve itself, but if this is deteriorating the image of the university, which to some extent I feel it may do by inviting the people who have political persuasions that don't agree with the university, inviting more of them to come to JCU. That was my concern. As I said with the fascist thing, that was my concern. So if you want to respond to that, please do.
Well, I had a really good thing to respond, but I forgot it.
If you think of it, we can also add it in post-production.
Wait, can you repeat what you were saying?
So what? Okay. So I don't see it as prestige. I see it as fame. It's attracting attention.
Oh yeah, that's
yeah.
JCU already has a lot of prestige and a lot of fame in Italy. It's one of the most important American universities in Italy. It's only one of 2 American universities. It's one of 30 American universities in Rome, but only 2 of these offer degrees, and the other one is AUR. And JC was better than AUR.
I didn't say it.
Sorry, I said it. And JC was better. So it's not that it's not prestigious. Obviously, who comes out of your university is prestigious, but also from the outside, if people see that the prime minister of the country that the university is operating in comes to speak at your university, you must think, wow, that must be a prestigious university.
Well, this is really all the time we have for today. I wish we could go on forever, and I want to thank each one of you for coming and expressing your opinions, which, not everyone wants to, explain themselves, but thank you so much for watching, and I hope you like, share, and subscribe. So thank you again. Thank you guys. Now we do this.